Hi, I'm Deanne Bedner, and today we'll be touring the Sculpts studio.
Before we get into today's video, I'd like to briefly describe the significance of this video to me personally. So currently there's somewhat of an underground natural building resurgence happening in the United States, and this is for a few different reasons. Firstly, up until recently, our modern building codes haven't recognized these traditional building methods. And secondly, I think there's just a general lack of awareness of the practicalities of these traditional building methods in today's modern world. One of the most significant contributors to this resurgence movement is the Cobb Cottage Company, which was created by Ianto Evans, Linda Smiley, and Michael G. Smith in the early 90s. Prior to their creation, it had been over 150 years since anyone had built with Cobb in the United States. Over the past 2 years, I've been studying and practicing natural building, and the majority of my knowledge comes from my work trade apprenticeship that I did at the Mud Dauber School of Natural Building in Snow Camp, North Carolina last year. My mentor Greg Allen took his first Cobb workshop at the Cobb Cottage Company in 2008, so in a way, much of my experience and knowledge has been shaped by the Cobb Cottage Company as well. The host of today's tour, Deanne Bedner, illustrated one of the most successful Cobb Cottage Company books, The Hand-Sculpted House, and she also took one of their very first Cobb workshops in 1996. Lastly, I think the straw bale studio is a great representation of using cob, straw bale, and timber frame methods in combination to create an efficient and beautiful structure. Generally, natural building can be more labor intensive than conventional building, but materials costs can be much lower. So if you're able to learn the skills associated with these various natural building methods, it then becomes possible to build an extremely affordable and sustainably built home. If you enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And now let's check in with Deanne and get into the tour.
I got interested in natural building kind of by accident. And it started when I was an art teacher and I was making models like this of little houses with thatched roofs and trees growing up the side and little fireplace and spiral staircases. And I would finish one and then I'd just start another one. And so it was a thing. And I had no idea what that was about, except that I was really interested in it. And I did not think I was going to be a builder, so I wasn't going for that. But I was interested in eco-villages, and I ended up going to an evolving eco-village at the time, Earth Haven, and they were in their early stages. And when I was there, I was telling them about these little models, and they said, "Oh, you have to see the Cobb Cottage flyer." So I found out about the Cobb Cottage Company at Earth Haven, and I retired that spring, and I jumped right into the Cobb Cottage workshop in 1996. And that was a very early time for Cobb Cottage, too. They hadn't been formal for very long. And the quality of it was very moving to me. We were building together, a creative process. And then folks that lived there were bringing things from their garden to us to eat every day. And so we had these organic vegetables and salads with flowers on top. There was an outdoor kitchen that they were making food in and putting things in a hay box, insulative cooking, and just all the richness of being together with them. Music at night, walking into the forests around the area and harvesting things. And I literally cried with the depth of feeling that I had for this experience and what it was meaning to me and how many needs it was meeting. So I was really psyched. And Ianto said, go back to Michigan and build with straw bale because you're in a cold climate and you're going to want to stay warm. As soon as I came back to Michigan, I almost immediately was visiting some friends, my friends John Hardeman and Lisa Blackburn, who lived out in the country, and their sister Fran Lee. I ran into her and found out that she was all excited about having a structure built for her, and she said, I want it to feel like a hug. And that was an initial inspiration that connected with her quite quickly after I came back. surprisingly quickly. So I was here as a volunteer, helping out Fran, who wanted to have a building that felt like a hug. And how that evolved over time was just something I never expected. So eventually, this building got built, and then the people who lived here before decided to move. And I moved in, started to have workshops, interns living with me, and that continued, and it became the rest of my life, really. You know, it's been the last 25 years that I've been doing this and loving it, and loving the combination of the art and connecting with nature. Great place to bring people in to connect with each other while we're connecting with nature. During the building process, I was continuing to stay connected with the Cobb Cottage Company, and I got to illustrate a book called The Cobber's Companion for Michael Smith. And then following that, the hand-sculpted house book was done by Michael Smith, Yanto, and Linda Smiley together. And that was a fabulous process for me to be able to take what I was learning and turn it into book illustrations that could show someone else how to do it. So now that you know a little bit about the background of the Strawbell Studio and me, let's take a look around. So I think of this whole place as Strawbell Studio now, and on the Strawbell Studio land, there's a main house that the original people used to live in and I live in now. And there's the Strawbell Studio, the Hobbit Sauna, and the Hob Edition, Middle Earth, and then a variety of smaller buildings. There's a kids' cottage and several wood shelters with living and thatched roofs. There's a rocket stove in one of the pole barns that was existing here ahead of time. The first building we're going to be touring is the Strawbell Studio. The first part of our design process was coming out on the land, and Fran found this spot that was pretty open, and we laid out sticks and stones to make the perimeter of the building. The base of the building is a rubble trench, which is a real traditional way of building throughout time. And we dug down along where our sticks and stones were, and we filled it up first with drain rock and then with stones off the land that we harvested from the glaciers. And then the stem wall comes up about 14 inches in our case to keep rain off the straw bales. After the rubble trench, we hired a stick framing crew to come in and put up the round poles as a timber frame to support the roof structure. After the timber frame, we hired some thatchers. We brought in some thatchers from Denmark, and they taught us how to do the thatched roof. Again, using local materials, Phragmite reedgrass, with permission from the state of Michigan. The reason we put the thatched roof on first was to keep the straw bale walls dry. And after we completed that process, then we could go on to putting in the infill bales. One of the final processes was applying earth plasters to the straw bales. And we harvested local soil that's made up of sand and clay, and mixed it and applied it to the surface of the straw bale in several coats. And this is now 24 years old and doing fine. So now let's take a look inside. As I come inside, I feel the whole building at once, and feel the spaciousness of the timber framing, and then the curvedness of the walls, the earth tones, thinking of Fran Lee, who wanted this place to feel like a hug. And I'm remembering all the people that helped do the plasters in the floor and all the details and how they're embodied, their energy is embodied in these walls. And even in specific details like the footprint of an intern here and this bench that some elementary students helped shape. And so this building evokes so much feeling and connection to life itself. To the left of the main entrance is an area we call the Cozy Nook. So we made the straw bale walls go out in a curve in this area, which was really a unique factor of the building. The benches are sculpted out of earth, out of cob, and oiled in places to have a nice finished surface. Another thing that you'll notice in this area is the deep window ledges that are created by having this thick straw bale wall system. This is another example of the sculptability of this natural material, cob, clay sand mix, and this is sculpted to mimic the roots of a tree. As we move into the south side of the building, which is more open, you'll notice there's a step up, a 14-inch lift, and that was to accommodate the land sloping from high to low in this direction. And it also creates a really nice separation of space from this higher level to the lower level that's aesthetic and also emotional. Throughout the building, there's earthen floors that are made of clay, sand, and straw, and this shows a cross-section of that. And then when they're finished, they are sealed with a penetrating oil. On this upper level, we have a cob bookshelf, and the boards are actually embedded a couple inches into this cob vertical column. We also see on this wall a stained glass window that was salvaged from the church where I grew up, and it was easy to sculpt around that frame because of the material. We maximize the windows on the south side of the house to get more light in, and in the process we have a curved bump out, a bay window seat, which really adds a lot to the feeling and coziness. And it also has a little balcony that emerged as we tried to create structure for the windows. One of my favorite parts of the building is this tree sculpture in the corner. And you'll notice it comes up, sculpted out of cob, and it becomes a frame for what's called a truth window. A lot of people have them in their straw bale buildings, and you can see the actual bales on the inside of the building. And then it continues up as a sculpture. And at a later point, this canopy of real branches was added on by some folks who came and visited. The last thing we'll be looking at in the straw bale studio is the loft. And this is a really cool place. It serves a function as a bedroom. There's a bed up here, and also a place for viewing events that might be happening here in the studio, musical things or performances. And surprisingly, it really makes a lot of difference in the effect of the cozy nook below, because the ceilings are lowered, creating more of an enclosed space for people. Here behind the straw bale studio, we have Middle Earth. And this has been a very adaptable building over the years. It started out as a load-bearing straw bale, and then eventually the roof became the floor, and post and beams were put up and infill straw bales. And then in a workshop, students came and did foundation and cob benches and harvested poles and put up a living roof. And now it's used in all these various ways. We're growing mushrooms today. Across from the Middle Earth is the Hobbit sauna. And this building was designed to be simple to build, and artistic and creative, and to model both straw bale and cob as a wall system. So the center section, where the hot room of the sauna is a very straightforward square room, and then the side where our entrance is a cob wall that's curved, and that part of the building doesn't have to be heated. Here's the lovely handmade door to the sauna, and a ladder that leads up to the loft. This area is solid cob, solid earth, and it's a changing area. And this door is the entrance to the hot room. So here we are in the Hobbit sauna, which is heated by this rocket heater. It has inside of it a chimney. So the fire here goes into that chimney, which creates a really strong draw and a really efficient fire burn. And all those hot gases inside the barrel will radiate the heat out, make the room turn into a sauna, and the gases flow out that pipe and exit through the roof. The last thing that we'll be visiting on this tour is the rocket stove mass heater. And the mass is this cob bench. The basic dynamics is that a fire is built here and the heat comes up and radiates out from the barrel, and then the gases, the hot gases, come through a pipe, an 8-inch pipe that circulates through the bench and the back of the bench and out the building, and in time heats up the bench inch by inch until it's a very warm, heated surface. Cob is a wonderful material for building a rocket mass heater because the mass of the cob holds on to the heat, stores it as a battery, releasing it into the people and eventually into the space. It's beautiful. You can make all sorts of artistic sculptures with it, and it's fireproof. I can't think of anything that brings people together in the way that natural building does, except maybe music, giving us an opportunity to co-create together and end up with something beautiful, have fun in the meantime. It's a wonderful process, weaving people and nature. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to the website strawbalestudio.org, and there's activities and lots of videos, blogs, information about natural building and other resources. I think you'd enjoy it.